In the final 4 episodes of this arc, Intersections in Real Time, Between the Darkness and the Light, Endgame, and Rising Star, we have a progression. In the first, we are shown directly what it is we are fighting against, the insidious and inhuman attempt to break a man's will for not bending to the decrees of the state. We can talk about the despotic and fascist nature of what Clark's government is, but we see that to its very core, what it stands for is control, domination, oppression. Pain, exhaustion, sensory overload, lies, manipulation, threats, and false executions are used to attempt to wear a man down until submission to the will of the controlling authority. It is an embodiment of Orwell's "imagine a boot stomping on a human face forever." We are not standing up to Clark because we disagree with his views, because he's a propagandist or manipulator or a bald-faced liar, but rather because he seeks ultimate control, even control over life and death. Between the Darkness and the Light builds upon this by making clear the degree to which they are seeking the control. We don't want cooperation, we want conversion. The Orwellianism on display, believing that 2 + 2 = 5 because the state tells you it is so, and it is always right. We see through this that this system is determined to annihilate the individual before the desires of the authority. Finally, we see through Clark's final actions the vacuousness of it, that it is control for its own sake. Clark did not do this because he believes in something, even something that is fundamentally wrong. It is simply to dominate. If his power is thus coming to an end, then his final acts will be of control. One, to attack the earth itself, as again the ultimate control is life and death. And to then take his own life, controlling that situation as well, controlling what his fate will be, even if it's with a hole blown through his skull. The man would literally rather die than surrender control. This series of episodes likewise displays the complexities of such a war. When you are fighting your former comrades in arms, things are complicated, not just in the fact that you should be on the same side, but do they share your views, or might they pretend that they do when they don't want to, when they're defecting, I mean. Likewise, are their views shaped by a belief in what Clark stands for? Or a belief in my country right or wrong? Or have they swallowed propaganda and lies? Hence Sheridan's thoughts on using the telepaths to attempt to reduce enemy effectiveness with limited loss of life. The calculus of war, to use some to save more. As Sheridan notes, he did so because he felt he had to in order to save more lives, and he hated doing it. Unlike Bester and Clark, who used people with no regard for consequences. Bester's outrage at being on the other side of that equation, of how the logical choice would have been to choose someone who matters to him personally, shows that tactics aren't what matters to his ilk. It's about sides and sides alone. It's not about any concept of what is right and what is wrong, what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. It's whether or not I approve. The war plan acknowledges the political complexity of the situation, that alien allies are to be auxiliary forces, not on the front lines themselves. This addresses the accusations of Clark's xenophobic regime by making sure that Earth is being liberated by humans, that it's humans that are putting their lives on the line and humans that are carrying it out. The Minbari solved their problems themselves. The Narn and the Centauri, unknown to the public at large, mutually solved their problems because they were so inextricably linked. It's likewise down to humanity, then, to solve their problems, eliminate this threat that has taken over their world. Yet the role of the aliens is just beginning. As Sheridan notes, it's part of a long move to get them to see the need to pull together. In Between the Darkness and the Light, we see it has reached the point where, without human or Minbari prompting, the rest of the powers agreed to the need to come together and come to the aid of Sheridan, to reciprocate for his insistence on standing with all of them during their times of need. The willingness to stand together in war makes it easier, in the end, to stand together in peace. That's rather the point of Rising Star being an entire episode after the climax, or rather, after the climax of the war, but not the climax of the show, because that's what this is. Babylon 5, the station, was supposed to be our last best hope for peace. Rising Star reveals that even while fighting a war, Sheridan and Delenn were working to fulfill that purpose, for Babylon 5 to have been the means where a League of Non-Aligned Worlds became an interstellar alliance devoted to united advancement and coexistence. The show could not end any other way and still be true to itself. War was chosen when the alternative was appeasement. But even the war was nevertheless dedicated to the cause of peace, because it was about maintaining sovereignty and encouraging nations to come together, even if it was only out of fear and self-interest. That's where it began. It took facing down the barrels of Minbari guns to make humans realize that something like Babylon 5 was needed to try to maintain the peace. And it was staring down weapons that would eventually compel the alien worlds to see the wisdom of unity in war and united prevention of war when it was done. This is why this was the last of the Babylon stations, because it worked so well, you didn't need it anymore. Babylon 5 was like a doctor who had healed so effectively, all that was left to do now was to hang up a sign saying, "Gone fishing."